Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike. With me, as always, is your other co-host, John. But, John, we have a very special guest today. It is Ryan, a.k.a. B-Town Bucket Boy of the All4You Pod, which is an Indiana podcast that you should all be listening to, and we'll talk about that more as we go. But, Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. I come in peace. Unfortunately, you guys couldn't get your hands on an actual Purdue fan for this one. So they do exist. There's a lot of them.
Yes.
So I'm taking off my Indiana visor and I'm going to put on something a little bit more Northwest Indiana neutral.
There you go. I was like, is he going to put on a Purdue visor?
I was waiting.
No. I was waiting for it. But yeah, White Sox. That's good. So yeah. Just Purdue fans, FYI, just so you know, and everybody, we struck out with Purdue people. We took some swings, we missed. So Ryan is nice enough as being the thing about Ryan is he may not love your team, but he's invested in your team because that's what rivals are. Just like I will check Wisconsin and Iowa's recruiting rankings periodically every year just because. Not even everybody else because I don't care that much. But, yeah. So. And John, how are you doing? I didn't mean to not ask how you're doing.
Oh no, you're good, man. No, I'm great. It's been a busy week, and obviously podcasting too. We've been putting out a lot of stuff and still putting out a lot of stuff. But we're really happy to have B-Town Bucket Boy here. I think it's going to be an interesting take. I think it's kind of a cool exercise, and I believe in his ability to keep his bias in check.
Absolutely, and we are. I think we are, John, now at the halfway point of our previews. So we're halfway through the teams as of today. So if you go to our YouTube page on the playlist, you can see all of our previous previews we did. We just had an awesome Penn State preview with Ty from the Solid Verbal. So that was awesome. That was amazing. I mean, Ty is an incredible professional and has been doing this forever. And it was really a privilege to have him on. So if you're interested at all in the favorites to win the Big Ten this year, check out our Nittany Lions preview. But today we are talking about Purdue. We're talking about Michigan State. And we're also talking about Big Ten Media Days.
Well, before we get into that, as always, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. And you can find Mike here at Alibaba26 and me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can email us, We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com. And Ryan, if you want to give your stuff one more time, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is at B-Town Bucket Boy on Twitter, or as we were talking about before, X, the everything app.
I won't ever call it X.
Well, I only call it by the full government name, X, the everything app. Follow the pod at All4You Pod on Twitter.
Great.
Yes, and that will be the All4You Pod will be linked in this episode as well as Ryan's Twitter presence. So
we're doing our Know Your Foe series for Indiana, where we break down everybody on Indiana's schedule. We just released the Iowa one today, and I know you guys are invested in Iowa. So if you want to take a goose and a gander at that, I'm more than happy. That one was actually run by my other co-host Connor. He did the research for that, and we kind of collaborated on it. So that was a fun one.
I'm a little scared whenever Ryan, I don't know how much you know this, but Kirk Ferentz gets a certain kind of smug when his offensive line is extra good. And his offensive line is extra good.
Yeah.
And he's just like, ooh, I'm going to shorten games. I'm going to pound people. I'm going to play everything at my pace. Even the games I lose, I'm going to make miserable for everyone involved, including the fans. And he's going to do it. And you just know he is. And I even going into it, I'm already can feel how much it's going to, and you know what? F it. I'm going to that game. I got my hotel reservation.
Oh, it's that's tough.
I'm going there. We won there last time though.
There you go. We did not. That was 2021, and it started our season off very poorly.
It's tough, man. It's tough to win in Iowa City for anybody. I don't care who you are.
We at the end of our episode, we were like, "Oh, what's your conclusion on Iowa?" And after listening to the whole breakdown, I said, "Well, Voltaire said that some states have an army. Prussia is an Army that has a state. And I said, in a similar vein, Iowa is an offensive and defensive line that has a children's hospital and a creative writing program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I when I was in college, I went to an Iowa writers workshop once.
Really?
And yeah, and it was great. Actually, a couple years, and it was great. Had awesome, like they had really good faculty. It was, they do have a really good creative writing program.
Mm-hmm.
And but one night at like 3 a.m, there's a fire alarm, right? And I run outside. We go out, fire alarm. I mean, not run, but I'm speed walking, but I'm asleep. Like I'm out of it. Like I've been asleep for hours. It's 3 a.m. on a weekday, kind of thing. And we go out there, and all of a sudden I notice, and there's not just the people at the writing workshops. There's all the Iowa students who are taking summer classes, right? So this fire alarm goes off, and everybody comes out of this building, and it's full. And I see a bunch of people like nudging each other and pointing at me. And I realize I've got on a Gopher t-shirt, maroon and gold and like yellow shorts.
Oh no.
And I was just and I was like, yeah, that's right. It's like, here I am. Once I realized it, because I didn't realize, I was like, yeah, you saw me.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny. But yeah, anyone who's ever thinking about that, Iowa Writers Workshops, good experience. Worth doing, for sure. All right, gentlemen, I think we got to talk Big Ten Media Days before we do anything else. And I just love that the coaches in the Big Ten aren't taking it lying down.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't going to be beholden to some narrative that we're a second-class conference when we've won the last 2 national titles. And you've seen Bielema do that on Twitter a lot, defending the Big Ten. And then Curt Cignetti, Indiana head coach, said that when questioned about his week out of conference schedule and dropping Virginia as a future conference game, said that, we're just adopting an SEC scheduling model.
Yeah.
And then Jed Fish came out, and this one had me rolling, guys. He said, the thing about the NFL is that the NFL doesn't stop to play the CFL in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And if that's not a shot at the SEC to play in a cupcake in the penultimate game of the season every year, as if it's, it's one thing to play those money games in September when everybody else is. But when everyone else is playing like these tough conference games and trying to qualify, and it's like you're gonna play a scrimmage against an FCS program in late November.
Mind you, it's usually right before rivalry week as well.
It's always before it's the second to last week of the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's before rivalry week, so that they can spend 2 weeks getting ready for that game, and so they can rest guys and all that kind of stuff. And it's always been ridiculous that they play that game that way, and it's ridiculous that the SEC expects the Big Ten to play tough out of conference games when we're already playing 9 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Indiana is canceling those games, but Indiana has to play a 9-game Big Ten conference slate. So the SEC is playing 8 conference games. So even if they play 1 power conference team, they're still playing 3 cupcakes and 9 games, and that's it. And most of the teams in the Big Ten aren't doing what Indiana's doing. Most of the teams like Minnesota are playing an out-of-conference game against a power conference opponent, along with the 9 Big Ten games, and then you're playing 10 power conference teams where some of the teams in the SEC are playing 8, and there's no equity there.
Yeah,
there's no equity there at all, and so I'm glad that Cignetti is out taking shots. I'm glad that Jed Fish is out taking shots. I'm glad that Brett Bielema's been out taking shots, because it's ridiculous, and I am tired of this idea that somehow your 8 games is as good as our 9, because it's just math, folks. The Big Ten is taking 9 more conference losses than the SEC every year. And that's just not fair. I don't care how good you think the teams are. Mathematically, that's not fair. So, gentlemen, I ranted a little bit. Please, your thoughts on any of that.
Well, I'm going to let Ryan go, because we've been over this.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, you know where I stand.
Yeah. So obviously Kurt Signetti had to take the question about the cancellation of the much anticipated high billing home and home series against the University of Virginia. I mean, I know they were clamoring for us to go to Charlottesville, and I know that people were chomping at the bit to get to see the Cavaliers in
Counting
Bloomington.
down.
Yeah, but you know what? It turns out that Scott Dolson, he's a bit of a roundhead, not a Cavalier. That's an English Civil War joke for you. But no, I think that Signetti, I thought that he was kind of boilerplate up until that point. He was just reciting his mantras and all this stuff, and it was all just kind of ho hum. And then it was actually, I recognize it. It's one of the Locked On podcast hosts, the Oregon one, asked the question. And then Signetti goes into this response, which was, obviously prepared, but I thought it was pretty masterful because it did three things. And, the headline does not tell the whole story. The first thing he said was very simple and plain. He gives up the game that this was a financial decision. He said, we got to add an extra home game. And he said that this was a scheduling philosophy that was being put into place before I got there, meaning Scott Dolson had canceled the last two legs of a 3-game series with Louisville before Tom Allen had even been fired. So this was a change that Scott Dolson was making to put more home games and at the time more winnable games during a time when, Indiana was really in the mud, but this was going to become the new approach. And in this one, we get to take away a home game, or we get to add an extra home game, right? And Virginia, we have a small capacity stadium, 50,000. Virginia was not going to really move the needle in terms of how many tickets were going to be sold versus Kennesaw State is who we replaced them with in 2027. And in 2028, we did not replace them with Austin Peay. We added Austin Peay to 2028, but that 12th slot and that week that got freed up is still open. So we'll see who it is. It's going to be another mid to low group of 5 team, but it's going to be a home game. And so not only were we not going to make any money off of the road leg of that home and home, but there's going to be travel costs and everything associated with that. And so now, even though you're biting $500,000 to cancel the series, and you're going to have to shell out, like $300,000 for a G5 program to come to Bloomington, the math, we did a little bit of napkin math based on publicly available stuff. It still comes out as a net positive for Bloomington for as far as I could, off of my flawed napkin math, like couple $100,000, and that could be the difference between closing or not closing a varsity sport, which is I know Minnesota recently just got into some bad headlines over some of the ways that Minnesota is trying to get around the new influx of spending that's going to,
even though half the power conference teams are doing the same thing, including Clemson.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a common thing. Everyone is about to get pinched, and all of the prestigious schools really do not want to be the ones who take the hit of having to cancel a varsity program in order to pay for football. And so this is one of the costs of doing business there. I don't like it. I like marquee matchups. I think that there's consequences to it. I think that we were robbed of a home playoff game because we didn't play Louisville on the road. If we would have played and beat Louisville on the road, there would be no question about Indiana's strength of schedule. I don't think Virginia moves that needle, right? I don't think anyone's expecting that by 27, 28, Virginia is going to have some kind of renaissance here. But so that, again, he made it very clear that's the reason for the decision. Then, he talks about the scheduling philosophy, about how it was an outside decision. And then at the end, the masterful thing, the thing that grabbed the headline, was he reframed the issue from Indiana ducking competition, ducking a program that Tom Allen swept in a home and home, and he beat with a group of 5 James Madison in their building. He flips that into Big Ten versus the SEC and points out these discrepancies and arguments about scheduling. And look, I think there's room for nuance in this conversation, and I love having nuance in this conversation. But as anybody who's on Twitter right now knows, neither side is anywhere close to being able to approach this with nuance, and the knives are out, and that's just the way it has to be. But ever since the reframing, now Indiana's decision to cancel the Virginia series is no longer about Indiana ducking competition. It has now a pitched battle between the Big Ten and SEC, and programs that had been chiding Indiana for, canceling this series are now having our back. And I think that Cignetti, once again, master media personality that he is, even though he's not necessarily, it doesn't seem like it, but he's got a lot of the Carnival Barker professional wrestling promo cutting attitude that you see from the most adept media personality.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around, right? Like he's not some young coach cutting his teeth. He's seen it all. He's tested things before. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff he said in smaller media markets and hit or miss he learned from. So I think that's a strong point. And until we have auto bids, there's no incentive to play tough out of conference games unless you're a helmet school.
Yeah.
Unless you expect to win 10 plus games every year, and there's 3 or 4 and USC thinks it's 5, but it's not yet until it proves it is. Teams in the Big Ten you can say that about. And for everybody else, is it helping Wisconsin to get their doors kicked in 2 years in a row by Alabama? Is that advancing the program?
It might cost them a few $1 million if they have to fire Fickle. I mean, if you think about it, Van Dyke went down in the Alabama game, and I don't think anybody's anticipating anything positive coming out of a trip to Tuscaloosa. The one thing for like the big schools is if you've got like a 70-something thousand stadium, a 90,000 something stadium, yeah, you can make a lot more money by bringing in a marquee opponent. But yeah, the Indiana is not going to be able to reap those benefits until, we have some serious expansion of Memorial Stadium.
And with trends the way they are just nationally, I feel like the days of thinking about expanding stadiums are gone. And
that was the third thing he emphasized, and this is where the Tony Petitti footprint of emphasizing the importance of standardizing schedules, of adopting the auto bid model so that we can then fix this problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, who hates the auto bid model? The media. They hate it. The national college football media, they hate it. And they have all jumped on board this 5+11, 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at-large picks that the SEC is pushing forward as if it's clearly the answer to everything, even though we know the SEC start off favored in the polls because of ESPN and a combination of ESPN and recruiting rankings, right? And sees the SEC favored in the polls to start every year. And then they're playing 9 fewer conference losses than the Big Ten does, which favors them in the polls also over the Big Ten and the Big 12. And the Big 12 is playing 9 games. Mm-hmm. So they should be pissed too. It's weird. It's honestly kind of weird that they're not.
Well, and they want to use with that 5+11, they want to use like ESPN metrics. They want to use metrics that are in their favor. So it's already a system that's rigged in their favor, and they want to rig it even more.
They want to rig it more because they didn't win the last 2 years.
And therefore
they think it's their birthright to win a national title every year. And guess what? For most of college football history, it wasn't. Yeah. That was the Bagman era was a time in college football. It's over. Sorry. Yeah. And it turns out the northern schools and the schools on the coast can compete too.
Yeah, well,
that's a Minnesota thing, a bag, man.
Yeah, you're going for the pronunciation too. Yeah. Also, this thing I'm drinking is a pop, and don't tell me otherwise.
I flip-flop between pop and soda. Don't you worry. Never soda pop though.
Yeah. No soda pop, pony boy.
I think that the media, a lot of people are jumping on in the wider world onto the 5-11 model out of a misguided belief that it's going to protect small schools. It's going to protect Group of 5 programs and allow them to like earn it on the field, which what's going to happen is any Group of 5 program that comes even near like approaching these at-large bids is going to get the knives out to take them down, like we saw with just the gall of Boise State getting a first-round bye for being a higher-ranked conference champion than the Big 12 program. And like Brett Yormark, Kelly School of Business graduate, was ready to nuke them from orbit, right? And I think that the auto bid model, I like it. It's clean. It's what I suggested the last time I was on this show with you when we were talking about it was before the championship game, and about how we should divvy them up and just kind of recognize that some of these, there are inequities in these conferences, and allow for just like bracketing of this. And I think that even Tony Petitti is arguing for a system that has semi-fluid automatic bids that are redesignated based on out of conference records, head-to-heads, and some stuff like that, which I think is cool. I think that's great.
Playing games, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Different ideas for sure. So anyway, the media has taken this really personally, and Stuart Mandel, who is, those guys who sound like they're nerds, so they think they should be smart, but then they open their mouths, and you're like, really, dude? That's how I feel about Stuart Mandel, and I'm sorry for even putting him on blast, but I just can't at this point. But he said, quote, in a tweet, "Big Ten Media Days this year took place on an alternate planet Gaslight. The coaches are weirdly fixated on the SEC's schedules, and everyone talks exactly the same way. Like the SEC didn't all sound the same, saying we're the best conference and we should be able to be ranked higher even though we play fewer conference games and blah,
putting
blah,
out
blah.
handbooks for
a literal propaganda handbooks, literal propaganda handbooks. But the Big Ten is taking place on another media days are taking place on another planet." And so I couldn't take it. And I was like, who are you kidding saying that? How can you argue that the Big Ten's, and he's also been saying the Big Ten is pushing this model. He asked Petitti to his face, and he was like, the model you want is really unpopular. And Petitti says, no, it isn't. And Stuart Mandel says, well, I took a Twitter poll this morning. And I was like, a Twitter poll? You think that's scientifically useful? Like, come on, man. Like, you got to have the least amount of intelligence here. So I said, in response to his tweet, I said the vitriol towards the Big Ten versus your adoration of the SEC is noticeable. Kind of a full mask off moment for Stu. 5 + 11 is unfair when the SEC takes 9 fewer conference losses than the Big Ten each year. Consistently ignoring that point shows how biased you are. And he came back and he said, there are ways to address that without blowing up the entire structure of the sport and rendering non-conference games meaningless. And then John, you and I, and also Galen from Crimson Cast came on there, and we all just said some effect of, but you're ignoring the elephant in the room, the SEC playing the 8 conference games. Like, we have to deal with that before there's going to be any equity. And he didn't respond to any of those, but he did respond to Scooby calling him an idiot. He's ducking the issue. He's ducking the issue. And the whole media is ducking the issue because they know they don't have a leg to stand on. And I just thought that was ridiculous that he, that he came after, that he was, he made that point. I called him out. And then in all the replies, he's got 3 people being like, but you're not addressing the point at all. And the one guy he responded to was the guy who wasn't.
Well, do you think that the reason the media seems to be so in favor, and obviously they're just used to taking direction from Greg Sankey and the SEC and ESPN, no matter who they are. I mean, even like we've talked about a million times, there are networks now that are even affiliated with the Big Ten that are seemingly having a tough time moving away from the pro SEC narrative. But I'm wondering, to me, and I think you and I have talked about this, Mike, that it seems it's laziness. They don't want to have to complicate their lives and how they cover this sport. It has been this way for 20 plus years. And it's been easy for them to just be like, okay, let's look at these teams. Like, okay, the committee says this. All right, great. Like, I know what to write about this. I've written it for the last 15, 20 years, whatever. And it's just recycle. It's like rinse, wash, and repeat. That's
well, and not just that. Let's assume that the 10 outside of the elite schools, that the 10 middle schools in the SEC are better than the 10 middle schools in the Big Ten, even though on the field that hasn't been the case.
Yeah,
it hasn't. It's been very even, if anything. So, yeah, no, I'm completely with you, and I think it's funny that it's like, I remember when I was young, right? And every year the sportscasters were like, Notre Dame's going to be back. Remember that, John?
I do.
Ryan, you might not remember this, but when we were growing up, every year it was Notre Dame's going to be back. And they never were until Brian Kelly took the job. They never were. They had like 1 year under Charlie Weiss that kind of worked out, like with Brady Quinn or whatever, but that was it. But every year, and it's because that's what they're comfortable with. And you see that with other brands now, with Nebraska or
Miami,
Texas A&M,
even though Miami did,
yeah. I mean, Miami had a good year last year, but how many decades was it? Miami's back this year. They're back.
Yeah.
And I do think sports writers are lazy inherently. They get into a job where you can put in, they probably start out when they're young, putting in lots of work, right? But they realize they can cut corners. And part of cutting corners is just making broad-based assumptions on teams. And they are annoyed when they can't do it, when they have to actually treat every team as not a blank slate, but every team from the building blocks to like flesh out the rest of the team. And you have to study everything from year to year, and it's all going to change, and teams are going to be up and down and whatever. They hate it. They can't take it. They would rather just assume SEC superiority, helmet school superiority. It's a lot less work.
Well, I think there's some structural things behind that do lend credence to that. But there have been a lot of things that have leveled the playing field in a way that I don't think people have fully appreciated. There's been this narrative that, Nick Saban, ducked out of college football because now, he can't hoard talent and he can't do all this. And his rosters were getting picked apart. No, they weren't. They weren't
getting picked apart.
They weren't getting picked apart in the slightest.
But the last team that could really hoard talent and like be 3 deep everywhere was that Georgia defenses in 21-22. And like,
I don't know. I just finished our Oregon breakdown, and I'm looking at this roster, and I'm like, my eyes are going like, holy moly, every single position. What has happened, and Indiana's a perfect example of this, is that the group of 5 has been pilfered. There is a talent wasteland now in the group of 5, and that's kind of the elephant in the room that no one really wants to say anymore, because we have this like benevolence, neglect, benevolent elitism towards group of 5 programs, where it's like, you could get a group of 5 program that just like loves each other and cares and works really hard, and they'll be able to fight into the college football playoff. It's like, it's really harder to do that now than ever before, because not only are you losing whole roster worth of players every year in the group of 5, coaching staffs have never been more picked clean, because now the Indianas, the Minnesotas, the Auburns, the Mississippi States have so much TV money and the mandate to spend it and to be competitive, that the group of 5 and the high-level FCS have been absolutely pilfered. And so the power
which contributes to parity.
Yeah, but parity for who is the question. And so
the power conference teams.
Exactly, which is why I think that we do need to institute some kind of hard measures that sort of reflect that reality. And I think that the 5 plus 11 people are people who it's more of the same. It's more of the same changes that have kind of started to break the sport in really fundamental ways that everybody is frustrated with, and they just want to do more of that, as opposed to the AQ model, which is a radical approach to work within the contours of the new college football that has been birthed by NIL, the transfer portal, and the massive TV contract money.
Yeah, I would say that Petiti did a really good job. I think those are good points, Ryan. I think to turn it back to to Petiti, I thought he did a really good job. I think that he made the point that it was 9 more losses for the Big Ten every year. I think that it was important for him to say that, and for him to say essentially, we're not going to budge.
Yeah,
we're not going to budge on the AQs. And what that's really saying is, I don't actually think he means that. I think he would budge on the AQs if the SEC went to 9 conference games, but he's drawing a line. Maybe he's drawing a line in the sand so that he can. It's a good negotiating position anyway.
See, I don't know, because he said you can keep your 8 conference games if we go to the AQs, because he made the point of saying that, like, as long as the positions are doled out, the conference can decide how to allocate them however they want.
But he knows the SEC has turned against AQs and isn't interested in that anymore either.
Well, the thing is it's Greg Sankey has come out now twice in the last, like, I don't know, month or 2 months, like, about he is pro nine conference games. He wants it. It's the coaches that are and ADs that he's having trouble convincing to do so. Yeah.
Well, right, because they don't want to get fired.
Yep.
And that's what it comes down to. All right. Anyway, guys, I feel like we could talk about this all day, but I think we should. I'll cut that off. And the last thing I'll just say is, are there any other things, anything from coaches or players that stuck out to you through media days? I'll start. Of course I did. They asked the Wisconsin players. They named off 6 games, and it was Alabama, Ohio State. It was all the best games on their schedule, right? And they said, which game, if you could guarantee a win, which game would you guarantee a win in? And they all said Minnesota. All of them, including Billy Edwards. And he's still hurting from, I think we sacked him again just now.
And picked
he
off
threw another pick
ball.
just now. Yeah. So I love that. I love being part of such a rivalry where there's so much hate. It wasn't like they had different answers. It was like they were all like, oh, Minnesota, we F them. Which is what they should. That's how I feel about them.
There we go.
So it's like, it's good to be part of, one of the great rivalries. Ryan, you are part of a great rivalry as well. It's like over time. It's a lot of fun. And all I know is 63-8. Somebody's going to be leading the series come November. So I'm glad that they're already thinking about it. I know I am.
I mean, I think for me, it's just the fact that, like, you can tell how good, and we talked about this last year, about how the coaching in the Big Ten overall has just gone up so much. And I think that's also reflected on the field. And you can hear it in the way they speak. Like, overall, I'd say, I mean, there's a couple, here and there where it's a little rough to hear them talk.
Oh, man, Ryan Braun, dude.
David Braun, yeah.
I mean, David Braun, excuse me. David Braun, like, it's like watching paint dry. I mean, my goodness, he is boring. I mean, he made Luke Fickell look like compelling, and Luke Fickell is not a compelling public speaker.
Yeah, he's a coordinator for sure.
But like David Braun, dude, I think after this year, he's probably going to be a coordinator again.
Oh, no. I mean, like, I want my coaches to kind of be carnival barkers, like Michael Keaton in The Founder. I want my coordinators to be like clipboard warriors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Struggle to make eye contact. They're just in their notes, unless it's a D coordinator. A D coordinator is kind of different.
No, that's got to be. He's got to be a rally. He's got to be the emotional center of the team.
There's a space for that. There's a space for that for sure.
Yeah. No, I thought that was fun. I thought, man, dude, I talk about 12-dimensional chess with your coach Signetti. I got to bring up PJ Fleck gassing up not only Indiana, who's not even on the schedule this year, but also just praising Nebraska. Matt Rule's great. Nebraska's so talented. They're just amazing. And all the Nebraska players, or I don't know if the players are, but they probably are, but the Nebraska media is just, and the fans are just lapping it up like, oh, PJ's not so bad. These guys who have hated PJ with an unholy passion since he landed in Minneapolis.
An unhealthy obsession.
Unhealthy obsession. But I love it because that's going to be such a key game for both teams this year. And I just think PJ is getting out in front of it by like trying to take any edge off they have from us beating them 5 times in a row, and I love it. I love media days. I love the posturing. I think it's all great. Jed Fish was talking about coaching. I thought it was really fun. He was saying, I didn't go to Florida because I wanted to learn to be a leader of men. I wanted to learn how to coach ball. That's why I went to be under Steve Spurrier, because I wanted to coach ball, because that's what I love is coaching ball. Because, it's funny because there are basically 2 kinds of coaches now that you're allowed to be publicly. Either you're the guy who's the leader of men who rallies everyone together, CEO, head coach, or you're known as the X's and O's genius, and you get to be nerdy about that. And those are kind of the 2 kinds of head coaches we have now. And I think we have good representation of both of them in the league. And I think, John, to your point, the coaching might be at an all-time high point in the Big Ten. Now that we got rid of Ryan Walters, like there really aren't any coaches you can just blatantly take advantage of.
No, that's a perfect transition.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Purdue. How about those Boilermakers? So it's been a rough time in West Lafayette since Jeff Brom left. Jeff Brom, it's like the breakup where Jeff Brom has decidedly won to this point. But Purdue, you could make a comeback. You could. because you finally have a real coach. Barry Odom comes over from UNLV, and he had incredible success there.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Brom proved, I will say, the one thing Jeff Brom did do for Purdue is he proved that they could punch above their weight at times. So even though it's crashed back to reality, going 4-8 and 1-11 in in a year that was really rougher even than 1-11, when you look at how bad, say, the Indiana game was. What was that, 66-0?
Get right on the head. And they also set, I think, like 4 or 5 all-time series margin of defeats. It was tough.
Yeah, that's rough.
One of the worst seasons Purdue's had, I think, all time
ever. And Purdue's had a lot of really bad seasons.
Yeah.
So, but Barry Odom has had a crazy journey. So he played linebacker for Mizzou in the mid-90s, was a successful high school coach right out of college. He returned to his alma mater as a grad assistant in 2003 under legendary head coach Gary Pinkel. And Odom held a ton of different jobs there until 2012, eventually rising to the position of safeties coach. Man, just sidebar, Gary Pinkel was such a great coach. I mean, you just knew his teams, he would do that thing with his, where like you knew it was a screen pass. Like they needed 5 yards. You knew it was going to be a screen pass, but he was 4 wide. You didn't know if it was going to any of the wide receivers or the running back, or if there was a trick involved. And the next thing you know, they got the first down, because of course they did, even though you knew what the play was. And he was like, I feel like the modern version of Gary Pinkel is Steve Sarkisian, in that he has just an endless supply of screen passes. But that's neither here nor there. Odom went on to be DC at Memphis for a few years, then eventually was defensive coordinator's alma mater, Mizzou. And then eventually, after Gary Pinkel retired for health reasons, Odom was promoted to head coach. He went 4-8, 7-6, 8-5, 6-6 in his 4 years at Mizzou, and then was fired. So for a first-time head coach, honestly, I don't think he did a terrible job. Like, Mizzou was justified in firing him, but it wasn't a dumpster fire situation.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't fall apart. He didn't just crater the program. He just wasn't Gary Pinkel as a young head coach, and who is. Then he was DC for Arkansas before going as head coach to UNLV and putting together the best UNLV squad since the 1980s. 9-5 in year 1, an incredible 10-3 in year 2. Based off that meteoric rise, he was offered the Purdue job. Despite his status as a defensive coach, Odom's teams put up lots of points at UNLV. So it'll be interesting to see if Purdue can once again field a competent offense under Odom, because, when Purdue has been good, as we know, it's been when the offense clicks. It's the kind of program that needs to be an offensive driven program, I think. So what are your thoughts on Barry Odom, Brian?
I think he's a great coach. I think it's a good hire. You spoke about his brief tenure. Well, not brief, but a fairly long tenure for a first-time head coach who flamed out at Mizzou. For what it's worth, Mizzou fans still speak pretty well of him. I think they all just said he wasn't ready, and they moved on. UNLV, obviously, very, very impressive. However, we're going to get to it in a minute. I don't think we're going to see the same offense or the same offensive production coming that he had at UNLV, specifically because the offensive coordinator who was the mind behind the go-go offense that was so popular and everybody talked about it. If you played CFB 25, people were using all the time. He did not follow him to Purdue. Instead, he picks up Josh Henson, a former offensive coordinator and O-line coach from his time as a linebacker DC at Mizzou. So they were like colleagues. And then he's had an interesting run. He's moved around, been an offensive line coach at Oklahoma State and Texas A&M. Then
his alma mater.
Then was a offensive coordinator / O-line coach under Lincoln Riley these last 2 years or maybe even 3 if I'm counting it wrong, at USC. And so he's moved on. He's plucked him out. So it's a really interesting, because, you don't think of Lincoln Riley as being a guy who that offensive coordinator is a co-offensive.
No. He's not. Lincoln Riley's running the offense, calling the plays. You're an errand boy. If you're
well,
that guy.
he's a pretty tenured errand boy.
Yes. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm just saying Lincoln Riley's not given control of his offense over to anybody, even when he should.
But then he's coming to Purdue, offensive coordinator. Instead of coaching up O-line, he's going to be coaching the tight ends. So that's pretty interesting to me. But he's got a ton of offensive accolades. His offense has performed incredibly well virtually at every single stop that he's been to. If they didn't perform well immediately, they got to that point at some point. So I like the hire, but the real juice of this Barry Odom hire is going to be in the defense. This is not going to be basketball on grass. He brings over Michael Shear. It's pronounced Shear. He's a young guy, 31-year-old.
So we're going to talk defense. I think John's going to talk offense. Let's do offense first, and
yeah,
then,
for sure.
And then
I was just talking about coaching staff.
No.
He brings over a hot piece who was a former linebacker of his at Mizzou, then goes through the process, and now he's a hot rising piece that followed with him. But so in terms of Purdue, the way that I feel of this Barry Odom tenure starting, what do you guys know about Paul Pot?
Pol Pot?
Paul Pot. Are you familiar with the concept that he popularized and implemented of year zero, where you tear down all the institutions and societal standards and social structures?
PJ Fleck was a year zero guy.
Yeah, and so that you can the fields lay fallow, and then you can rebuild from that.
Yep.
That is what this is. And I'm sure you're going to touch on the transfers in and transfers out. But I really feel like Barry Odom, kind of unlike his time at Mizzou, really has a chance to come in here and put down roots from day one or day zero. And we'll see throughout this, as we go through this roster, some of the pieces that are going to help set that culture year one.
Yeah.
Right on.
All right, did not have Pol Pot on my bingo card. For
anyone who listens to Know Your Phone knows
we already have that. You made a reference to something else, and I made an Outsiders reference. So we're doing okay so far.
Oh, this is great. Well, all right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about offense here now. Pertaining to like scheme and philosophy, with Barry Odom, I expect anyways, a more run heavy RPO focus. I think he's shifting Purdue towards a run pass option. I think they're probably just to get, probably targeting 55-60% run with quick passes, screens, perimeter runs, to leverage the nutrition of the run game. But they definitely need to improve their efficiency. I mean, Purdue averaged just 220 plus yards passing in 2024. They just have to be more consistent. Now, I loved Hudson Card as a gamer, but he had no one around him to help him out.
He didn't have a chance, dude.
He had no shot.
I mean, I should dance on your grave for that one, but I'm not even gonna, because he had Max Clare and that was it.
Yeah. And no offensive line. None.
Yeah, no, I know.
Nobody was
and he got the ball
him.
to Max Clare, so he did what he could do.
Yeah. But I think there's some notes for optimism here. I think that, having a confident, experienced quarterback, who can execute with precision, whether that's a returning transfer or a returning quarterback or a transfer signal caller, I think it's good. So you've got let's see here. You got Ryan Brown, quarterback, who returning starter was retransferred. And then you got, Devin Maccabee. You've got Malachi Thompson at fullback. You got wide receivers. Let's just start here with the quarterbacks, though.
Yeah, does Malachi Singleton have a chance in here in this battle or no?
No, because
I don't think so.
It was his camp battle that people just assumed he was going to get the spot, and then Ryan Brown comes back from North Carolina. It's one of those, why would they let him back in the room if they didn't think that he was going to win the job type of deals? Because that seems like such a late entry that if it was Malachi's job to lose, then you really kind of poison that room. Could be wrong, but I think Ryan Brown showed a lot of promise last year. Obviously, very limited sample size, but he torched, that vaunted Illinois defensive back room, 300 yards through the air and 129 on the ground. And Purdue probably might have been able to win that game in overtime if they hadn't tried to go for two, which, Purdue fans were like, we're not mad about the decision to go for two. Fans love seeing stuff like that. But I kind of like it. And it's not like Malachi Singleton is coming in with anything better, right? 28 attempts across 4 appearances at Arkansas. Was there for a cup of coffee, essentially. So, it's a tough room, but I think that Ryan Brown is my prohibitive favorite to do this. And I think, no matter who wins, they're going to be at the bottom of most honest, power rankings in terms of quarterback rooms. I don't know if it'll end that way. I think that Ryan Brown has potential to kind of carve out a spot for himself. He's, especially as you said, as they're transitioning to an RPO structured offense, his legs add an incredible amount, and he obviously has an arm that's passable enough to pass. So I think that quarterback shouldn't be a major albatross around their neck.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's going to impact on how well their third down success is. I think having that mobility is going to help a lot. Just a lot of quick passes, screens, what have you, is going to really help out the run game as well. And just like I just said, his mobility is also going to add to that. So, I think it's a good style of offense running with this, and with him at quarterback. I agree with that change in scheme and strategy. So, so moving on, I guess, to the running backs, and the guy who just seems to, have, I don't know, what is it, 6 or 7 years now? Something Devin Maccabee has been.
It feels like he's been playing since the Obama administration. Like it does. I don't think he has, but it feels like it.
Yeah.
And he's got such a distinct running style. Like we always are like, oh yeah, Devin Maccabee. You always remember he's out there because Crazy Legs runs differently than anyone I've ever seen.
And it throws defenders off, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know what to do with him.
It's like if you suddenly have a left-handed quarterback and you're not ready for it. Yep. You know what I mean? It does. The way he runs is just, it's weird.
Yeah, well, and so, my question is, since we've seen him throughout the years, what do you expect his ceiling is going to be this year with this Purdue running game?
Well, that's a great question because 2,500 career yards for him across. This is going to be his 4th season, if you believe it, but it feels long because he's had very successful times. But his total yardage has been slowly ticking down over time. But that doesn't mean his quality's gone down. Last year, he was averaging 3.5 yards after contact. Was averaging over 5 yards a carry, had 19 yards of 10 runs or longer behind a really bad offensive line. Only had 4 touchdowns last year and 2 fumbles. And Devin Maccabee has had a career fumble issue, 19 total touchdowns, 12 career fumbles, most of them coming in 2023. So he was fighting really, really hard to move them down the field, but that Purdue offense could just never get into the end zone. And so I look at the rest of the room. I look at Malachi Thomas coming in, and he doesn't really bring too much in from Virginia Tech. 1,200 career rushing yards over 4 years at Virginia Tech, 7 touchdowns, not terrible, 4 yards a carry, with some 4.2 yards a carry with 3.3 yards after contact. So that tells you he was getting no help from his offensive line.
Right.
And there's just not really much left there. And so you're coming off a year where you had Reggie Love in there helping shoulder a lot of the load from Maccabee. So I think you'll see Maccabee's, tabulating stats, his yardage go up as his usage goes up. But man, how much tread is left on those tires? You think about what what Rutgers was doing to Kyle Monangai and stuff like that. He got tired towards the end of the season. I hope he's not tired for my Bears. But I wonder. It's obviously the shoulder. It's all going to go on Maccabee's shoulders, and I think that he's going to rise to the occasion. But I think you're going to see some of these peripheral stats, his yards after contact, his yards per rush, tick down, and maybe some of his advanced stats tick down. But I think you'll see him get back to like a 600, 800 yard season, so long as he stays healthy.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and moving on, I guess, then to the offensive line here, which of course, as we know in the Big Ten, is all important. And like we already talked about, if they can't protect the quarterback or create holes for these running backs, it's all for naught, no matter how skilled you are at those positions. So, with their offensive line, they've got 4 transfers coming in, but a lot of experience, other than the youngest here, it looks like Braden Joyner, who's a redshirt sophomore. They've got some seasoned I guess offensive linemen. So they've got at left tackle Joey Tanona, Jalen St. John at left guard, Giordano Vaccaro at center. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
He also sings baritone.
Yeah, it's Italian, and my fiance, who's very Italian, would probably get mad at me if I mispronounce it. And like I said, Braden Joyner, and then at right guard, and then at right tackle we got Jude McCoskey. So, what do you think that's going to come in? I know it's a lot of transfers. You're trying to bring in this cohesion that's really important, and having them all gel pretty quickly. What do you think is going to happen here with that?
So it's a pretty massive camp battle. I don't know who's gonna get the center position. Who did you say was probably going to be center? Mason Vaccaro?
Giordano Vaccaro, but there's also Ethan Trent. It looks like a redshirt sophomore behind him is what could be going on here.
Okay. Well, there's a wide range of guys in here. Obviously, Tanona was a transfer from Notre Dame in 2023, former 4-star guy. Probably you could pencil him into left tackle. And then for right tackle, I would probably look at a UNLV guy that transferred in. That's going to be Jalen St. John.
Okay.
He was the left tackle at UNLV. We're looking at 1,500 career snaps on this guy. On per PFF, 61 grade run blocking, which is above mediocre, and then 71 pass blocking grade, which is pretty solid. And he's had 2 starting seasons at UNLV, and those numbers have been pretty consistent. When you get to the guards, it kind of becomes a big mush. So you've got Braden Joyner, who was a left guard at Auburn. He was a left guard at Auburn. He started at Auburn last year as a redshirt freshman and didn't do the best job, but I mean, he's got serious starting reps that young.
Yeah.
And so I've seen some places project him as the center. I don't know if I trust someone that young at center, but he could certainly compete for a guard spot. Another person who's going to be competing for a guard spot, another redshirt sophomore that came over from UNLV, Hank Purvis. He was a depth guy at UNLV, but, there's a tremendous amount of coaching consistency coming over from UNLV. So you wonder, was he coming with an agreement in hand that he was going to have the inside track towards getting one of these guard spots? And he graded pretty decently in the 77 snaps he had at UNLV. But then I think the biggest wild card piece in this room is the first of a running theme that we're going to develop, which is a former 4-star transfer from Georgia, Marquez Easley, and not just a former 4-star from Georgia, but one with a record. Marcus Easley had in March, he crashed his car into the front of an apartment complex in March and then entered the spring transfer window and left for Purdue.
Luckily, there's not a lot of drag racing in West Lafayette.
Yeah, right. Thankfully, they don't have an addiction to car dependence over there. But yeah, so that's an interesting spot. So that's kind of some of the pieces. There's other pieces coming in from UNLV. Vicari is one, but then another one that's kind of interesting for me, redshirt freshman. I don't anticipate he's going to see any time, but Mark Nave Jr. coming in from Kentucky. He's got a pretty good body on him, 6'6", 335. Being that young, you wonder how much of that is cheap weight and how much of that is lean mass. Probably not enough. And then a fun one that I just want to point out, 6'8", 300 pounds, Jude McCoskey from Indiana State. Big guy. I love putting interesting body shapes into my dossiers. He caught my eye.
There you go.
All right.
We have a 6'8" defensive end from Clemson who's just percolating, and we're like, is he going to be something, or is he just 6'8"?
But I think that this room is going to be good. I think that there's Tanona coming back, I think gives them a chance for a solid left tackle who's been kind of waiting in the wings for that opportunity. And then you have enough transfers coming in from UNLV who probably should be able to cut it, at least to a passable level at Big Ten. And then of the other pieces, I really like this camp battle. It's difficult to do a camp battle for an offensive line. You don't really want to do that, especially with a wild card like Easley coming in the spring window. I don't think they'll start good, but I think that this will be a group that by mid-season or maybe even early season has gelled into something that works.
Okay. Yeah. Well, last year there wasn't a lot of opportunity for Hudson Card to get the ball to his wide receivers and anything really down the field. I mean, every once in a while Max Clare caught something, but wasn't often enough. So hopefully that offensive line is able to do something for them here. And but speaking of targets, though, like we've got another bunch of transfers, which is not unusual here with a new head coach and someone coming from UNLV, and having to piece things together, especially when Purdue was absolutely ransacked and in the portal. So we got I'm just going to run through these. You can tell me who the starters or where you think, wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 are. I mean, right now I've got Nitro Tuggle, probably a wide receiver 1 sophomore. He's a sophomore transfer. And then you got Charles Ross, who's a redshirt senior. You got Denylon Morissette. And then you got Corey Smith, Michael Jackson III, Chauncey Megwood. I mean, there's a bunch more here, but those are kind of the top of the line here that I see. And then also at tight end, because without Max Clare there, obviously there's a big hole to fill. So you got George Burhan, he's a redshirt sophomore, and then behind him, at least what I have right here, is Christian Moore, who's a redshirt senior as well. So what do you think about the targets? Like, how do you think they're going to be able to move down the field? Do you think it's going to be better this year? Do you think they're still going to struggle? I mean, I know they're going to be doing that RPO short game, but do you think they're going to have a deep threat?
Oh, I think that they're going to be threatening in a sense. So this is what I like to call the double flush. And if you were following Purdue's roster last year, they had 8 wide receivers transfer out, not counting tight ends, wide receivers.
They were kind of the Cal of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this year they had 11 transfer out. So this has been a tremendous amount of flushing. But let's talk about some of the pieces that stuck behind, right? Or the only piece of significance that stuck behind, talking about junior Denylon Morissette. And
all-name team candidate.
All-name team candidate, also all Georgia perp walk candidate. In 2023, he was a Georgia DUI. And after he got his DUI, he headed up north to the land of Georgia football players, Purdue, West Lafayette.
He's got a type.
Yeah. So this is the second one. 21 targets, 11 receptions, and 106 yards with 2 touchdowns. He has really good speed. And if you go back to the 2024 spring game, you can see some of that. He's got genuine speed, SEC speed, right? But he doesn't have, I guess he doesn't have get away from the cop speed. As
Not fast enough.
They have cars.
But he struggled with some injuries later in the year, and obviously the whole offense struggled. So some of his stats don't really reflect how quality of a wide receiver he is. And, he's coming back for a second year. Obviously, it's going to be a whole new look. I would expect him to probably be in that top spot. Obviously, we have to talk about Nitro Tuggle. Nitro Tuggle, former 4-star from Indiana, transfers to Purdue from University of Georgia. Fellas.
No.
Oh, no.
Arrested for driving over the speed limit at 107 miles an hour.
What?
Yes.
Oh, man. God,
yes.
Man. What are you doing?
God, Kirby Smart's just not doing anything.
No, he's not flushing them all to Purdue. Yeah,
he's not doing anything to slow up the problems.
Yeah, if you've ever gotten arrested for anything or something like that, the people will send, you'll get like the ambulance chasing lawyers, getting public records and just sending out mass leaflets to people who have been recently arrested. I wonder if people who have been recently arrested in Athens, Georgia, the players get like a flood of leaflets of like, come to Purdue.
Are they offering asylum in West Lafayette or something?
That might be it. But yeah, so that's an interesting thing. But legitimately, he is incredibly fast on and off the wheels. And he didn't see the field much at Georgia. He had only had a few targets, but he did see the field as a true freshman at Georgia, which counts for something. So he's going to factor into that race tremendously. But the thing that catches my eye with this transfer room is 4 seniors coming in with relative levels of experience. I like to dig for guys. Senior Charles Ross was a 3-year starter at San Jose State before then he transferred to USC in 2024. spent 2024 on the IR, injured, and missed basically the entire season except for a couple late season snaps. 900 yards in his 3 years at San Jose State with 4 touchdowns. Was primarily a slot receiver. So if you're trying to, pencil in who might be Purdue's slot receiver, I think you would want to look at Charles Ross. Michael Jackson III, all-name team, former 4-star recruit, was a 3-year depth wide receiver at USC before transferring to Georgia. No criminal record here.
Hey!
No criminal record. And instead, when he went at USC, he had 500 yards in 3 years with 5 touchdowns, which is pretty solid for, a younger guy in a rotational role. When he moved to Georgia, for whatever reason, he disappeared off the stat sheets. I looked for an injury report if I could find one. I didn't see any reporting on it, so he just got buried. He's something of a contested catch specialist. In 2023, he caught 7 of 8 contested catches and was 1 of 1 in 2022. So, maybe that's going to be a perimeter role that if he's not the starting guy, he could be used in that sort of role. Every team needs one of these types of guys. Chauncey Magwood, I've seen him penciled in for maybe like a specialist role, might be doing some kick returning and stuff like that, but he was a depth wide receiver for 2 years at both University of Kentucky for 2 years and then UCF for 2 years, coming to Purdue with their quarterback coach, who was a UCF coach under Malzahn. He's kind of a high variance player. He had 5 receptions on 10 targets in 2024. Not really much to shake a stick at, but on those 5 receptions, 102 yards. So he's got some burning ability. There's one guy I want to highlight for the wrong reason, of being a red alert player. I love finding these guys. EJ Horton. He's from West Virginia and Marshall. 200 yards on 22 targets and a touchdown as a depth wide receiver on West Virginia. He was injured in 2024 on, I think it was still on West Virginia, but 3 drops for those 2022 targets, and 2 of them coming in a single game against Oklahoma. So a bit of a drop guy, got a bit of the dropsies. If I'm a Purdue fan, I hope he stays off the depth chart. But yeah, that's the wide receiver room. It's a lot of pieces being thrown at the wall. I'm very high on this Purdue roster. This wide receiver room seems like a continuation of the Ryan Walters approach of just getting anyone with a pulse, some guys with some former acclaim to their name in terms of recruiting rankings, and throwing in there. I like the influx of seniors from varying levels of football. I like that, but something that stood out to me looking at this room, virtually every single receiver to a man is between 5'11" and 6'1". So there's a low variance in body types, which tells me that the coaching staff is trying to find guys that fit their mold. It's trying to find guys that are going to help instill like the program character and instill that foundation for what they want to do in the future. So I don't know if this wide receiver room is going to be good. I don't know if Nitro Tuggle and Denylin Morissette find oxygen in this room, right? Or if they kind of flame out because they don't fit the culture. Not making any accusations there. But I think this coaching staff knows what it wants out of this room. So that's promising.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you.
Oh, and tight end. Sorry, you mentioned tight end. I might as well go through it. It's an interesting room. It's not going to generate much vertical threat. I think there's going to be a scope reduction here with Max Clare's departure.
Yeah.
The seniors, or you have junior Rico Walker, former 4-star coming in from Auburn. Didn't see the field much. He might be more of like a blocking tight end. He's 6'2", 246. It's kind of, your sturdy fullback converted into a tight end guy. Then you've got a former JUCO senior, Christian Earls, comes from UNLV. This one's interesting. 6'8", 275. Was a really solid blocking tight end at UNLV in 2023. Got injured in 2024. He is probably going to factor into this, especially coming from UNLV. You've got a youngster, 6'5", 240, Burhen. He comes back with nothing, 1 target, 3 yards. That's really nothing. Redshirt freshman, Luca Puccinelli, 6'6", 250, good frame alert, intriguing transfer, but he's young and has no real experience. So I think you're going to see them lean on Walker and Earls. reduce the scope of the tight end room to more of a blocking role. And maybe if Burhan or Puccinelli can manage to assert themselves, you might see something open up that way.
Okay, great. Good stuff.
Cool. All right. That was awesome and informative. And I think we need to move a little faster on defense just based on where we are in the scope of the show. No.
Okay,
Right. No, it's awesome stuff. We just need to make sure we get through the whole episode, or else the Michigan State fans will be like, wait a second. You told us we were going to talk about you. All right, let's talk D. So we talked about the DC. I think, he does a good job, and honestly, it's Barry Odom's defense, so I'm not that worried about, who the DC is, truthfully. So on the D line, they lose Kydron Jenkins from last year's team, and the question is, who can rush the passer? CJ Madden's back after sustaining a season-ending ankle injury last year. Staff brought in 2 portal DNs and CJ Nunnally from Akron, Breon Ishmael from Michigan. Transfers include Lindsey from Auburn and Marcus Moore from Bowling Green, who will start at defensive tackle. Trey Smith might start at DN, depending. And then backup DTs include Jamarian Harkless and Jamarius Dinkins. What do you think the starters starting looks like? Does it look how I taped it out, or what do you think's different? And what are your expectations for this unit?
Sorry, are those Purdue players, or did you? I think those might be.
Did I screw up?
I think because
Oh yeah, no.
Are those Oregon guys?
No, these are Purdue guys.
Okay.
I maybe just didn't list the guys who are the most important, but unless my preview magazine is totally wrong, some of these guys play for Purdue.
Okay.
But you tell me who's going to start and who's important, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I see. I see some of the names. Those are lower on my list because they're underclassmen. Sorry about that. They're lower on my list because they're underclassmen. I love this room. This is the room. When I first saw it, I was doing our power ratings, and I'm like, whoa. There's a there for Purdue, because I had gone through their offense. I'm like, oh, this is not that great. Buckle up. All right. So you've got defensive end senior CJ Nunnally the fourth, 6'3", 260, coming in from Akron, former JUCO player, 1,300 snaps in 2 years at Akron, first team All MAC both years.
Impressive.
13 career sacks, 73 tackles, 59 stops, and 3 forced fumbles. Dog. Defensive end junior CJ Madden, 6'4", 270 pounds. One of the few holdovers from last year, was a former Georgia transfer in 2024, did not come to Purdue because he got arrested. He's a real deal player. He was a depth piece for Purdue and Georgia. He got injured week 4. He was playing pretty well up until he got injured, and then he just sat the rest of the year on the bench. So optimistic look for him coming into this season. Defensive end senior Miles Mitchell, 6'4", 250, 3-year player out of Monmouth FCS with 1,300 snaps. Graded really highly in his final season, 77 run defense grade, 72 tackling grade, and 71 pass rush grade on PFF. 3 sacks, 22 hurries, and 31 total pressures last year, 20 tackles, 18 stops, and only 3 missed tackles. A dog. I love players who play. I'm a sucker for lower level players who can play. Defensive tackle / nose tackle, junior Marcus Moore, 6'2", 300 pounds. Another guy from Akron, not as well lauded as Nunnally.
Nose tackles never are, though.
Yeah, he's a 1-year starter, 2-year player with 650 career snaps, mediocre PFF grades. If he loses a camp battle, I won't be surprised. Another one, defensive tackle / nose tackle, junior Elijah St. John, 6'1", 275. Transfer in from the Long Island Sharks of FCS. And I forget where, but one of these guys has a tie. One of these coaches has a tie to the Long Island Sharks. So this is an inside track guy being brought in. 2-year player, 1-year starter. I don't know how this guy didn't win plaudits in the FCS, because he had 40 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, and 2 forced fumbles and a sack as a sophomore in FCS. Then you've got redshirt senior defensive tackle Josh Burney, 6'4", 300 pounds. Fella, this is a dog. This is a genuine bona fide dog coming in from D2, coming in from, where's he even coming in from? Fort Valley State. All right. I want to shout out a show and an account and a market, Buffed in Prime. If you've seen those guys, they're massive Colorado fans, massive Dion fans, but they are tape monsters and they love finding gems like this, and they have their own separate ancillary recruiting ranking and transfer rankings, and they made this guy a 4-star and they broke down his tape. It is fun to watch. Crazy explosive big man in the middle of the field, incredible leverage whenever he's on the field, strong and fast hands, throwing guys every which way, bends like a defensive end, and just a dog. I was about to curse. Sorry about that. I don't know if I'm going to get you demonetized.
No. We just gotta get through. We just gotta get through the first.
Yeah. Sorry.
10 minutes.
This is the last one in the
No.
defensive
And
line.
honestly, no. I mean, just for YouTube's sake, we just have to get through the first 10 minutes without dropping F-bombs.
Oh,
At
perfect,
this point
perfect.
in the episode, I'm not that worried about it, and we're not monetized yet, so you're fine.
Perfect. This is a guy to get excited about if you're a Purdue fan. 3-year starter at that D2 school. Would have had 4, but he missed 1 year. It looks like it was to an injury. But yeah, and then below that, a lot of the guys that you listed that I didn't recognize, I kind of glazed over them because they're a healthy group of youth transfers and holdovers from the previous group. But all the guys I listed, I really, really, really like. You know, this is kind of the platonic ideal of a year 0 build, of just bringing in dogs from all different levels of football, players play type of guys. I love this room. It's such a stark contrast to the wide receiver room where you're really dealing with spare parts. All these guys are coming in from different phases of life, different places, different body types, but they just all radiate hungry. And I love that.
Yeah, I'll always take production over potential. That's just how I am built when it comes to transfers. Like that, just 99% of the time, you're better off that way. All right, let's turn a linebacker quickly. Also very transfer heavy. Sanders Ellis from FCS Tennessee State, Alex Sanford from Arkansas, Manny Powell from UNLV. One returning player who could contribute is Winston Berglund. Who do you think starts here, Ryan?
Yeah, they bought the Barry Odom battle pass with this one because basically all the players are coming in from Arkansas, UNLV, or Middle Tennessee. So the obvious starter is going to be Manny Powell. I don't know their scheme all that well. I know they run like a 4-3, 3-4 combo. But Manny Powell, I think, just going off of what I see on PFF, is probably a 2-year player at Arkansas, before becoming the starter at UNLV. 59 tackles last year, 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 20 stops. He's a dog. He's an experienced guy. He's a senior. I like him starting at whichever linebacker position, but I'm guessing Will. And then I like sophomore Sanders Ellis. This is another dog from a lower level of football, but I love this guy. Transfer from Tennessee State, FCS freshman All-American, and a Jerry Rice Award finalist, which is the FCS award for freshman of the year. Dog, just an absolute stud. 86 tackles, 15.5 tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks, and 38 stops. This guy is a monster. I want him to start. Can he play at this level of football? I don't know. He's going to be on the 2 deep. Then below him, you've got the 2 guys coming in from Arkansas, Carson Dean and Alex Sanford. Neither of them are coming in with production, but because they were recruited by Barry Odom and Scheer before those 2 left for UNLV, they're kind of like spinning the block and scooping the guys that they were going to be developing anyway, now that they're going to be at a Power 4 school. So I like those 2 to be able to factor in pretty seamlessly. Love this room. Not a lot of splash here, just a lot of continuation of what Barry Odom has been doing at all his stops.
Awesome. Love that. That's all. That's really interesting. Okay, let's talk secondary. Gutted by transfers, losing Dylan Thieneman to Oregon and 9 other DBs to transfer as well. That's 10 DBs to the portal. That's not great. But Odom has brought in at least, I could find 6 portal DBs, if not more. Tony Grimes from UNLV could be the best corner, while Crew Wakely from BYU looks like the best safety. Who do you think? Do you think that's correct? And who do you think the other starters are? And like, what do you think their outlook is?
Yeah, I would probably put Tony Grimes in as one of the starting corners. 3-year player, 2-year starter at North Carolina, transferred to UNLV, and now to Purdue. 2,500 career snaps on that guy. Career opponent receiving percentage of 53%. So he's a real good cover corner. Only 1 touchdown surrendered last year with 4 pass breakups and a 78 coverage grade on PFF. I like him. He struggled a little bit with tackling. He had 6 missed tackles, but that's not really much to shake a stick at. Other than him, I would say, you got to look at Ryan Turner Jr. coming in from Ohio State and Boston College. He was a former 4-star, transferred to Boston College for playing time. Only 170 snaps at BC, but graded well. And then senior Chad Brown is one that I like too. 2-year player, 1-year starter at Nevada before transferring to Purdue. Excellent tackler, 86 grade on PFF last year, 44 tackles, only 2 missed tackles. That's a 3.7% missed tackle rate. 1 touchdown surrendered, 1 interception, and 4 pass breakups. They have their nickel corner or nickel back, or however they use it in their system, is most likely going to be Taj Ra'el, all name alert. 3-year player, 1-year starter at Old Dominion, transferred to Memphis, didn't get to play at Memphis because he got injured. But in 2023 at ODU, he graded really well and was a dog. 91 run defense grade on PFF, 82 tackling, and 72 coverage grades. He had 62 tackles that year and 22 stops in 2023. Opponent receiving percentage of 59%, pretty solid, pretty bog standard. Almost entirely played in the slot, so I would lock him in as their nickel back. Safeties, Crew Wakely coming in from BYU, former Mission guy. He's one of those old heads in the locker room. I think he's 25 or something right now, which now that the COVID guys are phasing out is back to being weird again.
Yep.
And so, you got
unless
him
you're a
in here.
kicker.
Exactly. Former 2-star BYU guy, made the Shrine Bowl watch list last year. That is something. He's a solid, strong safety last year with the Cougs. He grades in like the high 60s, low 70s in all of the PFF stats. Had 14 missed tackles in 2024, with 5 of those coming against Oklahoma State, but 44 tackles and 15 stops. 0 touchdowns surrendered, 1 interception, and 4 pass breakups. Solid. Someone else who could push him for strong safety is going to be redshirt senior Hershey McLaurin, 3-year starter at West Virginia and Houston. Took a step back after he left for Houston, but his usage rate went up there, so he's a little bit more seasoned. 40 tackles at Houston with 18 missed tackles, 25 stops, and 1 forced fumble. He had 3 separate games with 4 missed tackles. So I don't think he's going to be able to push Wakely unless he can fix that, but he'll end up on the 2 deep. Other guy, Ryan Williams, probably going to be the free safety. He was a dog for Central Arkansas, an FCS program, for 3 years. He played as a cornerback there, but I think that moving up a level, he's probably going to transition. I've seen places transition him towards safety, so I would presume free safety. Career opponent reception rating of 45%. If you pass it at him, there is an over 50% chance that is not getting completed. Pretty good. I love this room. It is so experienced. There are so many guys. It's a continuation of what happened in the defensive line room. I love it.
All right. Well, it sounds like they'll have a salty defense potentially once all these pieces get acclimated.
Yep.
All right. Specialist, just really briefly, Spencer Porath back after making just 7 of 11 field goals last year. They need him to be better than that if Purdue wants to win more games this year. And the punter is a transfer from Arkansas who's never punted in a game, in Sam Dubwig. So things can always change. Right now, the kicking game does not look great in West Lafayette.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know. They said they thought Malachi Thomas might return kicks and punts, but I think we'll have to see what Odom wants to do at returner.
I think that the whole of special teams, aside from like kicker and punter, is a camp battle. I think that there's just been too much change. They need to get something sorted out. I'm sure some of these guys that got brought in were brought in as special teams specialists in some sense, but it's going to be a camp battle.
Cool. All right. John, I think it's that time.
Yeah, schedule game.
Let's play the schedule game. All right, and for anyone listening in for Michigan State, I got to be honest, we're just going to make it a different podcast at this point because otherwise it'd be 5 minutes a piece of. No, it's fine. We can like shut it off and do it. I'm glad we've had the conversation we had, Ryan. You don't need to apologize for being awesome.
Good. I yap a lot. I yap.
You don't
way
need
too
it.
much.
You're bringing all the awesome information. That's
Yep.
all good. But we will shut it down otherwise because otherwise we would have to do the schedule game in like under 10 minutes. And then and I don't, we want to give it the time it deserves.
Perfect.
So 2025 schedule is tough. It's a tough schedule.
Yeah.
And it starts out August 30th hosting Ball State. Ryan, how do you feel about this game? Is this, coming off a 1-11 season? I think it's so important to me for Purdue to have something go right early in the game. A touchdown drive or a 3-and-out or a force a turnover or something just psychologically to be like, for all the returning players to be like, this is a new era. Last year's gone. This is a new thing. So how do you think it's going to go for them?
Yes, it's going to be a drubbing. I think, if I'm correct, Ball State is in some form of coaching disarray. I think they either lost their head coach or lost somebody there. They're going to be as bad as Southern Illinois is going to be this year. I know this is going to be walk-off burial blowout. It's Purdue. It was always Purdue.
Yeah. John, what do you think?
Yeah, same. I expect this to be a win. I expect this to, help the morale of Purdue and getting these guys together early on in the season for sure.
Yeah. And then Southern Illinois, while a respectable program of its level, is a program of its level. And they should absolutely lay waste to them as well.
Go Salukes. My dad's an alum, but they are going to get ground into fine paste.
Yes.
Agreed.
They certainly are.
Although the Salukis have been ones to upset bottom of the barrel Big Ten teams before. Weren't they the ones that beat Northwestern?
I think NIU beat Northwestern. Did SIU beat them too?
I think they did a few years ago.
I think you're right.
I'll fact check in real time. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Man, isn't it wild that Northwestern had such a talent disadvantage, but yet they were so well coached for so long that they could play with everybody? It's it's crazy that they were as good for as long as they were with the limited talent they had.
2022 lost in Ryan Field 31-24.
Oof, rough.
Yeah.
All right. So Purdue will be something they haven't been in a while, which is 2-0. And that sounds good. And then they host USC. So this is interesting for me, right? Because Lincoln Riley, as you know, Ryan, I don't know how much you know, but John and I aren't the biggest fans. We aren't overly impressed with Lincoln Riley. We think that he had a run first team last year and kept passing the ball anyway, even though they were better running the ball and they couldn't really, pass protect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we lost John, but he'll be back in a second, I'm sure. Jaden Mayava, man, here's my question. Is Jaden Mayava any better this year, or is he still going to throw a bunch of stuff up for grabs? Because if he does, maybe you force some turnovers, maybe the talent, the athleticism advantage, you can overcome by having more possessions. I don't know, or having longer possessions. Does Purdue have a chance here?
Yes, they have a chance. And this is kind of the thing I want to stress throughout all of these games that we're going to pick from this point on is outside of like a couple of them. You heard me go through this roster. It's got its weaknesses. It's got its strengths. It's got its hidden talents. They are going to get people. I don't know who, I don't know where. I'm going to call some shots this time. But my general opinion is that they're probably going to be 4-8. I would say 4-8 at a minimum for Purdue. That being said, I don't think that USC is that one. I don't, because for a few reasons. One, this is a tune-up game for USC. They've had 2 easy games going into this. They play Missouri State and Georgia Southern at home, and then they get to go on the road here. Danton Lynn is getting his second year as defensive coordinator at USC, and I think that the transformation is going to be much more near complete. And I didn't really like Miller Moss. I like Maeva a little bit more. I'm trusting Lincoln Riley to develop quarterbacks because that is what he does. And I'm sorry, I know you guys are haters of him.
No, I know it's fair. I appreciate
But
it.
if you were going to make a modern college football Mount Rushmore, Lincoln Riley would be on the alternates list. I mean, the man had Prince Heisman's like they're Confederate dollars.
How does it go with titles?
I mean, he's won a lot of Big 12 titles, and then he nearly won a Pac-12 title his first year there. His problem at USC has been that he jumped to the job assuming that the structural problems inside the USC administration were less than they were, and what problems there were, he would be able to smooth over with his, magnanimous character and everything with that. And he's run aground on that. It's kind of weird to think that moving from one genuine blue blood program in Oklahoma to USC was like I'm upgrading, because when USC is good, college football is box office. It attracts so much more eyeballs. It attracts so much more. And I know this is a helmet school thing that you guys don't like, but I am just saying that there is a certain level of punch that USC was capable of having, and for a wide array of reasons that has disappeared. And I think that Lincoln Riley has mostly been a victim of that. But I think that Purdue in this game is mostly going to be a victim of Lincoln Riley and USC. I just don't think that I think there's the opportunity for it to be close and for people to go like, "Oh, what's happening there?" But not much more than that.
Yeah, I think with the skill players, Purdue's going to get ground to powder at a certain point.
Yeah, I agree that USC should run away with this, but I still don't believe in Riley or Maeva.
No, I don't either. I think he's going to get benched for Hassan Longstreet within 6 weeks. I'm calling it.
Well, I here's what I said. I just spent a lot defending Lincoln Riley. I think he's going to be at least on the hot seat by the end of the season. Their schedule is not forgiving. It does not have a lot of breathing room, and it doesn't help that Notre Dame is at the apex of what they have been since the
Lou Holtz.
Millennia.
Lou Holtz.
Yeah, exactly. So I just don't see a lot of oxygen for USC this year, even though I think that they're probably going to be an improved team. But, a lot of improved teams have worse records than the year before.
Mm-hmm. Well, and expectations are so high at USC. And so I understand if they fall short that he's not going to have a long leash.
Yeah. And at Notre Dame, so we got them at 2-1 Purdue right now. Then they got to go play the Irish. I don't like this matchup at all. Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman has built up Notre Dame on the line of scrimmage to such an extent. Jeremiah Love might be the best running back in the country, maybe. And the Irish just have I don't love their receivers or anything.
Or their quarterback for me.
You don't like CJ Carr, huh?
Yeah, I think that they've just been dealing with such a higher standard of guy coming in. I don't really like it all that much, but that being said, Jeremiah Love is a superhero. There are levels to this sport, and when you have superheroes like getting to watch Abdul Carter and Jeremiah Love square up and seeing the defining play involve Jeremiah Love besting Abdul Carter in a superhero it was a kaiju fight. It was like a Godzilla movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when he ran 98 yards through the Indiana secondary like they were standing still. Apologies, Ryan.
No, not like they were standing still, running into each other. Our defensive backs collided with each other and opened it up.
I'm telling you, he was moving so fast it looked like you were standing still. It truly did. It was like a still frame photo. It was weird. It was like a weird play.
We kind of had him.
The rest of the game, but on that run, he looked superhuman. I guess my point is,
Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Yeah. My point is, I don't think this is close for very long. I think Purdue's going to get bludgeoned on the line of scrimmage here.
Well, hey, Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman is prone to giving up a loss at home to a group of 5 team.
True.
Purdue has a lot of group of 5 talent on their roster.
Sure.
Will this confuse the Purdue players and they think that this is the game they're supposed to lose? You don't know.
No. Yeah, I mean, look, I would love for this to be a Purdue win, and it would be amazing. But yeah, I mean, I just don't know how this team is going to stop Jeremiah Love. I don't see it.
I hate Notre Dame so much, but the one team I will never cheer to beat Notre Dame is Purdue.
Well, right. Of course. Yeah, that's how I feel about Michigan. Only substitute Iowa and Wisconsin. All right. So 2-2. Then you get a bye week to lick your wounds a little bit. Hopefully get guys a little more acclimated to their roles, get a little things, in order. And then you host Illinois. Now, this is interesting because there's a bye week. I think, what can Barry Odom scheme up? Offensively, can they scheme some stuff up against a pretty salty Illinois defense? Can they get a stop or two early in the game? Can they force, Luke Altmaier into situations that are uncomfortable? Or does the Bielema train come into town and just roll over them? I genuinely don't know. Ryan, what do you think?
Okay. I made the mistake last season of speaking way too reservedly about my takes about Indiana and our ability to break out. And it left me with this feeling of like, I had feelings, I had hunches, but I can't go back and say, hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. So I'm making a promise to myself to be more bold and to be more daring. And man, the spidey senses on this game are off the charts. First of all, I don't have to explain to you guys that West Lafayette and Purdue as a whole has been a house of horrors for Brett Bielema, Illinois.
Yeah.
He cannot get this monkey off their back, even to the point to where it was the worst Purdue team in the history of Purdue versus the best Illinois team in 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And they won by 1 point in overtime.
Yeah.
Okay. In their house. And also, I don't want to open this can of worms, but I'm not too kind to Illinois' record last season. I look at a lot of those games and they won a lot of coin flips. They won a lot of rock fights like Bravo, but they were in rock fights against teams that they should not have been, Purdue being one of them. I don't trust Altmaier to be able to perform to the level he did last season without the superstar wide receivers that he had with Brian and Franklin. I think that a lot of their offense is narrowing towards the middle of the field. I think that they are potentially going to be without both Thunders in their running back room. Josh McCray is off to Georgia to presumably get a DUI and then head to Purdue. And Caden Fagan has not played more than 115 snaps any season at Illinois.
No, he's struggling to stay healthy.
So if he's not there, then you're left with Khalil Valentine and not Hank, but Aiden Lawfrey. So you have Lightning and White Lightning. And, what is that running back room going to look like there? So I think this Purdue defense is salty. I think Brett Bielema is going to do what he does and try to get into a rock fight, but I think he's going to be shocked when Purdue is also equipped to play in a rock fight. Give me the Boilermakers here. I also don't like Illinois' schedule dynamics, guys. Listen to Illinois' schedule to this point. Open with Western Illinois. I love Western Illinois. We bludgeoned them, but they've actually improved a lot, and they're going to be interesting this year. They're
an FCS school.
Yeah, they won't approach Illinois, but Illinois won't be scoring 70 points on them. At Duke.
That's a tough game.
Darian Mensah,
he's
Mensa man, a Manny Diaz year 2 defense. That is must-watch TV.
Yeah, I'm going to
be watching that game.
Oh, it's going to be a great game.
I'm going to be watching that game very closely. I don't think Illinois is going to make it out of that one. I don't know. I don't think that they really – I think it's going to be close. But I just give the edge to, in my opinion, like Duke because they're at home and I like their quarterback more. Western Michigan, it is what it is. Then they go on the road again to my Hoosiers. Win or lose, it's going to be a difficult fight. Yes, it's a huge fight, but that's not what I'm on the pod here for. Huge fight. Then after that, they host USC, which if they're reeling from 2 early season losses and they manage to, grab a branch on the way down and take out USC at home, which I think they will. I don't think that they lose to USC. That might give them like the false sense of security because that has been 5 games, 3 of which are against Power 4 opponents, 2 of which have been on the road. And then you go on the road a third time, your 6th game straight to play a game against a team that went 1-11 last year. And fellas, I don't really believe in look ahead games, but you've played 6 games straight and your bye week is not next week for Illinois. You know what next week is for Illinois after that? Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
So let down look ahead. Sure.
And you have been beaten up. I don't even think look ahead. I think come up for air. I think like guys are going to be beat up and they're going to think I need to be in the best shape for Ohio State.
Yeah.
Fellas, everything is buzzing for me. Everything is buzzing for me.
You make a really compelling argument. It was a better argument than I thought it was going to be. John, I gotta hear what you think now.
It is. That's a really good argument. I could. It's not that I couldn't see it. I something like that absolutely could happen. I mean, it's college football. Like that kind of stuff does happen, and people get. I mean, like you just talked about Notre Dame and Northern Illinois last year, and I think the year before that was Marshall, and so like all these teams, like it can happen to anybody. So, and it does. It kind of lines up really well there. I at this point, am going to pick Illinois. But, due to your argument, I mean, I could see something like that possibly happening. And I do think that this is going to be a much better coach team. I do think Barry Odom is going to have things together and they're not going to be a pushover. And if anybody does take them for granted, I mean, I think Purdue could come up and bite you. So,
yeah, you know what? Here's what I'll say. I also think Illinois is going to win this game, but it's more fun if Purdue wins. So we'll throw in an upset for Ryan. This is a strictly, you are the guest. So we'll throw that in and say that Purdue is a surprise 3-2 team at this point.
Yeah.
Throw that in. Sure.
Listen, I understand the odds are against me. Illinois is going to be a double-digit.
No, but there's going to be upsets, right? You got to call some upsets.
I'm telling you, if there's going to be one that really makes you go, wow, it's got to be that one.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna say, like, if this was strictly just like if you didn't have as good of an argument like you just had, like, set the stage like that, like I'd be like, all right, But no, we've seen that happen. You see it happen every year. So
yeah,
I mean, look at Oregon almost got upset by Wisconsin last year because Oregon was at the end of their 6 games, something like that. Yeah, so like they were toast.
Yeah, I think it was 8 games in a row for Oregon.
Yeah, 8 games in a row. Yeah, so like they were done. And
no, they didn't have the juice left for Wisconsin.
Yep.
No, you're right. It's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
One disclaimer. We have not reached fall camp injury season. I'm hoping nobody in the Big Ten gets injured, but obviously all of this is patent pending, right?
Well, it's the summer. Everything's patent pending. Yeah, for sure. All right. So next up, Purdue heads to Minnesota. So here's the thing. If it wasn't homecoming and it wasn't a night game, then I could buy Purdue being really competitive here. But it is homecoming and it is a night game, and Minnesota is has the best, arguably behind Penn State, the best pair of running backs in the Big Ten. And I just think that PJ Fleck's going to run the ball, and I don't know if Purdue is going to be able to stop it enough to make it interesting. I think maybe interesting for a while, maybe a half, maybe 2.5 quarters or something like that. But I think that Purdue is going to be, assuming let's say they do pull that upset in Illinois, then there's that worry about an emotional letdown.
Yeah.
Going into someone else's homecoming at their house with a rabid crowd. So this could be a game. Like, Minnesota's had some games with Purdue over the years, for sure. Don't get me wrong. It could be a competitive game. Maybe it's just my maroon and gold glasses. I feel like Minnesota's going to be ready for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, what do you think?
I'm going to agree with you. I think I like Minnesota. I said in our power ratings that I would have put them, in the spot that I have Iowa in, except for the fact that I just don't. I know that you guys are very high on the long term for the quarterback situation, but as a redshirt freshman?
He's a redshirt freshman.
Yeah,
there's going to be mistakes.
Knocks it for me.
Yeah.
I love Minnesota's team composition. I think that PJ Fleck has done an excellent job building an incredibly consistent program, and that program is running to like an independent point, self-reliant. It produces its own talent. Mm-hmm. The only thing that gives me pause in this game is that you're coming, and this is going to be a trend for the rest of Purdue's schedule, is that you're coming off of a road trip to Ohio State. And
see, I feel like that's good for Minnesota because they're going to be pissed.
there's certain types of games that don't make you pissed, and there's certain types of games, especially when you're up against the hardest hitting types of teams in the conference, where it's like, you might be a little bit banged up, you might be a little bit coming some twisted ligaments here and things like that. But I don't think that Purdue is going to be in a position to take a road win over PJ Fleck's Minnesota this year. But again, I'm just going to add them to the pile of be on notice because someone's going to get got. All right?
Yeah, totally.
You're
John,
not off the someone's going to get got list. But
no. I mean,
I'm picking you.
Unless you're Ohio State or Oregon or Penn State, you're not off that list.
Precisely.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of trauma. I think like a lot of us do when it comes to Purdue and the Jeff Brom years and stuff like that. I mean, the Boilermakers were the Boilermakers.
Man, we beat them like 15 years in a row before Brom, and then he got us. He did get us a couple times. He did.
Yeah, and it happened on homecoming, I believe, and or at least they scared us a couple times. And Minnesota, for me, homecoming games have just always been a little nerve-wracking because we have lost games that we shouldn't lose on.
Not as much under PJ.
Not as much under PJ, but it's something that I guess just as a longtime fan, I'm just like I get nervous during homecoming.
Sure.
But but like on paper, I mean I think Minnesota should win this. I will still pick Minnesota. But again, like this is just and we talk about this in general in the Big Ten. Like even the lowest of the lowest teams, not to say that they still probably won't finish with 3-4 wins or less sometimes. You just can't sleep on anybody. So I think you got to be careful.
I personally think Minnesota has the second best or third best at worst safety room in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, we could say third if you're going to give Oregon the credit, but like Coy Parrish is the truth and Kerry Brown is really good and Aiden Gooseby is also very good.
Mm-hmm.
Gooseby.
I just think that Minnesota's going to crowd the box and make them throw the ball and figure out if Purdue has any wide receivers. And I just don't think they do. And I think Minnesota has, I just heard Coy Parrish talking about how he spent the whole offseason worried because he wasn't a good enough tackler last year. I think he's going to be a good enough tackler this year.
Mm.
Perfect.
Like, I just feel like he is. So we'll say 3-3 there, but that's better than you could have expected. And then you get a game that's really interesting. Then you go to Northwestern. And this is two teams that are, Northwestern's still rebuilding. They haven't come out of that yet. Purdue is rebuilding. I don't know how good Preston Stone is. He lost his job to Kevin Jennings last year, and that kind of makes me think he's not that good.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he's an upgrade over what they've had. I like Northwestern's defense, though. I think they're pretty good on that side of the ball relatively. This is a coin flip for me. I have a really hard time with this game. Ryan, what do you think?
Going into this, I was going to pick Northwestern or pick Purdue. I really do like their defensive line pieces. They played us pretty well when we were at the stadium by the lake. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be kind of a weird environment for a lot of these guys who are going in for the first time.
Yeah.
In a reversal of fortune here, give me Northwestern, but I'm going to give this caveat here. I'm barely picking Northwestern, and a lot of that is because Northwestern, before they play Purdue, road trip, Happy Valley. It makes me want to pick Purdue again, but I'm sticking by it. Northwestern. Give me Northwestern.
All right. John, what do you think?
Man, yeah, this is really tough.
Right?
Both of these teams have such glaring issues all over the board, I think, and similar
strengths, both pretty good on the D line.
Yeah, I guess for me though, I mean, I'm gonna have to go with Northwestern just because I've seen a little bit more proof as far as their defense goes.
Yeah,
I just can't pick Purdue at this time. Not to say that my picks might not change as we go to the season and we preview these games. But as of right now, I have to pick Northwestern just from what I've seen on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, so that brings us to 3-4. And then I would say probably if you're going to win another game, the most likely one I think you're going to win remaining on the schedule, in my opinion, hosting Rutgers. October 25th. Rutgers is going to play defense, and they're going to be pretty good, and they're going to run the ball, and they're going to be pretty good. And Ethan Kaliakmanis is a random number generator who could be anything from terrible to adequate, like depending on the day.
Or the quarter.
Or the quarter, or the drive, or the play. Yeah. he's a man. I don't know. So this one could go a lot of ways.
Temperament.
This one could go a lot of ways, is what I'm saying. This could be a game where Purdue shows up and gets ahead early in the game. That wouldn't surprise me. It could also be a game, a Greg Schiano special, where he just slowly grinds you into powder. I don't know. This is a tough one for me too. I'm thinking about it. Ryan, what do you think?
Listen, no Manungai, no Mohamed Torre, no Longer Beam, right?
Robert Longerbeam, yeah.
Yeah, and guess what? Guess who Rutgers plays the week before they go on a road trip to West Lafayette? They host Oregon.
Ooh, okay.
Give me the Boilermakers.
Okay, so that's 4 wins. You said 4 wins, and we got them to 4.
I told you.
Yeah,
that's amazing. With the, if they get the upset over Illinois, over Illinois, but even if they don't, they'd be, they'd have 3 wins, which would be better than a lot of people would think.
And a chance to prove me wrong at Northwestern.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll say 4-4. Mm-hmm. Purdue playing awesome, doing a good job. Then they got to go to Michigan, and
House of Horrors starts here.
If they got Michigan in like early September, before Bryce Underwood figured out what's going on, but people are genuinely comparing him to Cam Newton. And Michigan's, if they have a Cam Newton behind that offensive line and the defense they have perennially, I think it's going to be ugly.
It's not that offensive line. Their offensive line was not the best last year, but they almost all come back. So they'll be better.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, though.
This is
no, they weren't great last year, but they got better as the year went on.
Their defense is going to be nasty, especially in the interior. And if Purdue hasn't coalesced in some kind of way, you might want to run out the QB too. This is going to be a nasty, nasty game.
I feel like we should just put both Michigan and Ohio State in the same. I don't even. There's not really even much to.
There's not much
with
to
Ohio
discuss.
State either. We should just move on to Washington because it's going to be awful.
Okay. Yeah. I think we should do that.
Wait, before they play Purdue, guess who they play? Penn State.
Oh.
Yeah, but
I'm
Ohio
kidding.
State.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah. For sure. All right. So we've got Purdue at 4-6, still holding on to bowl hopes. Then they got to go across the country and play Washington. And I hate this matchup for Purdue because here's the thing about Washington. We say it all the time. They have Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman running the ball, and then Denzel Boston to throw it to. And I think on that alone, it's not going to go Purdue's way.
Yeah, all this talk of Illinois as a dark horse, Washington is the dark horse in the Big Ten. I really
think so.
I really think that they're, what does a dark horse mean? If everybody says, it's the opposite. If a tree falls in the woods, does it actually fall? If everybody's calling Illinois the next Indiana.
Sure.
Illinois is not a dark horse.
Exactly.
They're a top 15 team going.
I agree.
They're not a dark horse.
Yeah.
So
Indiana's not a dark horse because of what they did last year.
Washington for me is like, who's got some guys, who's got some dudes that can get a couple of these, and also a funny little advantage with everybody having to run 3 time zones to the west to go play them. We've seen a lot of Big Ten teams struggle in trips out west.
It's hard to go out there, and it's hard to go out there all those times.
Exactly. So it's gonna be Washington by a million. If Purdue is riding high and is 4-4 at this point in the year, I still want Washington. If Purdue is in turn the TV off mode, obviously I want Washington.
Yeah, John, what do you think?
I mean, look, if there's by some miracle Devin Mockabee is still relatively healthy after Michigan, Ohio State, and just this far into the season, I could see Mockabee maybe having a chance to run a little bit on Washington, but they ain't going to be able to score enough points to keep up.
No, Washington's going to name their score.
Yeah.
In this game. Yeah, I believe that too. Okay, so that brings you to 4-7. Then you get 2 weeks. Get ready to play for the bucket. And this will be the most organized Purdue is all year. And maybe Ryan Brown's coming into his own. And maybe he's got enough. There's a little bit of a passing game. Maybe Denylon Morissette's doing some things. Maybe the defensive line is good. And I don't know. This isn't a good matchup for Purdue. I don't like it. I don't like it because until someone can prove to me they can stop Elijah Surratt, I'm just going to assume that nobody can. I mean, Ohio State kind of did, but until somebody else proves they can stop in the Big Ten, that they can stop Elijah Surratt, I'm just going to assume you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I think this Purdue team is going to be salty. I think they're going to be good. I think that at this point in the year, they're going to figure out who they are, provided that they don't get caught by the injury bug. Man, I think Indiana's going to walk into West Lafayette. They're going to hang a crooked number on them. And Signetti is going to get on the mic. And thank God the ginkgo trees won't be in bloom, because Signetti would grab that mic and say, "Why does this place smell so bad?"
All right.
Well, good job, gentlemen.
Yeah, 4-8 then. So that would be, if Purdue somehow gets to 4-8, that would be impressive. I've got them closer to 2-10, 3-9, to be honest. But, there are some games they'll have a chance in for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, and you can bet, even in Minnesota, you can bet PJ will be showing film of that Mike Brown-Stevens game. Hey, let's not do this again. So, but that was Jeff Brom. That was another era. It's a whole different thing. I'm interested with Barry Odom. I do think until Purdue can get enough NIL to keep their players, maybe this house settlement helps them retain players a little better, because they've just gotten rated every year. And it just seems like they only have money for basketball players. And until that changes, I don't know how much success Barry Odom can have, but maybe the house settlement is enough that they can, keep their roster around a little better.
Yeah. They're definitely in the bottom quartile of the Big Ten. I don't think they're in any kind of crisis mode to where they're worse than a G5 program or most Big 12 programs, but they're definitely not competitive in the level that they're playing in terms of the NIL space. The bigger problem for me has been you're not making that much money. You're spending it imprudently. You're spending it on big splash pieces who are falling off of Georgia because of reasons. And then you're bad, and you're bad at coaching too. So, obviously I think that the big upgrade from that, I think Ryan Walters, the taste is going to be gone after this season. But I think brighter days are ahead for Purdue. And what I want from Purdue is for them to get to a competitive level to where the bucket can become the Big Ten's Egg Bowl.
There you go. We all have ambitions.
There we go.
Love it. The bucket as Egg Bowl. I mean, you could put the egg in the bucket. So I hear you. All right, Ryan, thank you so much. Tell everybody again where they can find his Ryan's podcast, and his Twitter will be linked in this episode, so you can go right to that. He is B-Town Bucket Boy on Twitter, but tell everybody where they can find you again.
At the moment, our podcast is only hosted on Spotify. You can find us all4you. You can find us on Twitter, all4you pod. And then I'm B-Town Bucket Boy. My co-hosts are at Invest in IUFB and at Indiana_edits. No, he doesn't make edits anymore. That's just his account's name.
There you go. All right. Well, Ryan, always a good time. Thanks again. You're a good friend of the pod, and we appreciate it. And have a great night.
You as well, gentlemen.
All right. John, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I had it muted for a second. Yeah, no, I thought it was an interesting exercise. I thought that was good. It was nice to have his perspective, and clearly, went very in depth and did his research. So it was really, really good to have him on for that reason.
No, Ryan's been a good friend of the pod. He's, jumped on and co-hosted when we needed him.
Yeah.
So he's a good guy. Check out All4You Pod, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, of all the guests we have, Ryan and I disagree a lot, but it's always interesting for me when we do.
Yeah.
Because it makes me think about things a little differently, a little different perspective. So that's always it's always fun. And, talking to Ryan in the Big Ten chat. If you want to be involved in our Big Ten chat, we don't have all the teams represented. So please, hit us up. And if you want to join in, it is a clean chat, which I had to remind an existing member recently. But yeah, it is a football ball chat. If you want to talk ball, hit us up. And check out this is our Purdue preview. Obviously, check out our previous previews. We've gotten through about half the Big Ten at this time, including Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. So we got all the big time contenders, and we'll be continuing our preview series going into August. And John, we're getting close to football.
I know it's coming
5
up
weeks.
Yeah.
5 weeks from today.
Yeah.
The Big Ten kicks off with a couple games, but the main one is Minnesota and Buffalo, in my opinion.
Yes. Most important. Absolutely. Well, and we're going to be covering Sparty on the next podcast.
Yes.
So we'll
sorry, Spartan fans. We didn't mean to punk you. That wasn't. Yeah. We just went long on Purdue, and Ryan had a lot of good stuff, so I didn't want to cut off his thunder and give Michigan State short shrift, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We want to give him a fair shake. Yeah.
Yeah. We want the time to talk about Sparty because honestly, the way our schedule sets up, if anyone's going to come in and surprise upset us at the end of like 6 games in a row,
yeah,
it could be them.
Absolutely.
I hope not. We should be the better team, but that game doesn't set up great for us just where it lands in the schedule. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to preview Michigan State. I'm excited going deep dive. They're better than I thought they were going to be, kind of. So it'll be interesting to talk about that. John, anything else you want to discuss before we get out of here?
As always, I'll just put this out there. You want to find We Live for Saturday? You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can email us, We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com. And please follow, subscribe, like, retweet, all that good stuff. We would really appreciate it. It helps
especially if you're audio only. Please follow us on YouTube. We've got a lot of new YouTube subscribers lately, and that's awesome. Welcome if you're new. Go check out our playlist of all our 2025 previews, as I said, and we'll keep it going. We'll do Michigan State sometime in the next few days here, and we'll go on into next week and do some more.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, John, have a good one. And everybody out there, we will see you in the next one.